Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Steve Monday, Chief Forecaster with Rowan County Weather. Today on the podcast, we've got some drag racers with us. Tony Wilson Racing. It's going to be Tony Wilson and Tisha Wilson that are going to be joining us today, and looking forward to talking with them. We're going to be following them through the 2024 season and everywhere they're going to be and everything they're going to be doing. We're going to be providing weather forecast updates for all these events they're going to be at, and looking forward to really working with them this year in 2024. They've also got some companies they're involved in, like Premier Concrete Solutions. We want to talk about that and really just focus on everything they're involved in general. And they're local here to us, literally in Kannapolis. So, friends and neighbors to a lot of us that are watching today, and certainly glad to have them with us. Tony and Tisha, welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So, why don't you guys go ahead and kind of give us a background? So I know both of you are drag racers. So let's start off by what got you into drag racing to begin with, and how early in life did you get involved in it?
Yeah, so our parents actually met in Idiot Circle in downtown Kannapolis back when they were teenagers. My mom had a 66 Mustang. My dad had a 62 Nova. Um, I think that right here.
Something like that.
Yeah. So they met through cars at a young age and street racing and things like that, and then they would hang out at Mooresville Dragway. So my brother and I both we were around racing before we came out of my mom's belly. She would be at the racetrack helping my dad through that time. So I think my brother went to the racetrack at like 3 days old, and I think I was a couple of days old as well. Our first racetrack experience at Mooresville Dragway and Shuffletown Dragway out in Charlotte, and even a couple of others. So it's in our blood. We're actually third or fourth generation drivers at this point. My grandparents or my grandfather used to race as well. He had an Anglia, and that's where my mom's love for cars came from. Was out helping in the shop with her brothers and her dad. So lots of history there. We could go on for hours talking about the different cool cars that they had and some of the history that goes along with it. But it runs deep in the family. Uncles and cousins and everyone's really been involved with some type of racing or even drag racing throughout our years. So this is year number 32 for us, I believe. So we've been doing it a while now, and even though we're relatively still young, we've been doing this really at an amateur level and even semi-professional level for quite a few years. So we're looking forward to this season. This is probably our biggest year yet as far as plans go and some of the things that we're going to get to do. So it's been really neat to be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, so obviously, NASCAR probably a predominant race sport in the area, but a lot of small tracks as well that are big. You mentioned the Mooresville Dragway. That's even kind of a big draw, really, for Rowan County. But for folks who are watching that really aren't familiar with drag racing, so you mentioned Tisha that you guys have been, it's like year number 32, but you guys are young. I mean, you're not, that can be misleading to folks to think, wow, they've been racing 32 years. They must be in like they're coming up on their 50s, but you're not. You guys are relatively young. So, Tony, just go ahead. First of all, with your age, how old are you at this point?
I'll be 37. We started racing junior dragsters when we were around 5 years old. We actually had one of the first junior dragsters in the state of North Carolina. We were watching NHRA drag racing on a Sunday evening. And I was probably 3 or 4 years old, and mom and dad looked at me that night that they showed junior dragsters for the first time nationally televised. They said, "You have to make a decision right now. Are you go kart racing, or are you round track racing, or are you drag racing?" And we have history in both. And I looked at them, obviously we're drag racers, and that's where we've been at. We have dabbled in go kart racing. We've run super late model, dirt super late models. Uh, we don't race anything with wheels on it, but we always end back up at drag racing, and that's where our heart's at. We've tried, like I said, we've tried a lot of different things, but drag racing is just our. That's where we're at. That's kind of our family background, and also that's what keeps us driven in our business day to day, because it is very expensive. It's a very expensive hobby. Uh, Again, my sister said amateur level. I would use that very loosely because we are as professional as we can possibly be on our own, because there's not really any major sponsorship anymore for the levels that we're on. We're going to be on TV this year, NHRA. We're going to get 90 minutes of coverage throughout the 10 race series. And hopefully we'll be on a lot of that if the season goes good. But I feel like amateur is a very loose way to put it, and very early stages of our career. We're as professional as we can possibly be at this time.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I mean, I look at it, anytime you're doing anything that involves getting paid, because you do get paid if you get to the pay window, right? So
That's
to
why,
me, anytime you do anything that involves getting paid, amateurs kind of out the window in my opinion. But I know some folks may differ on that. So Tisha, we got Tony's age. I know it's kind of a cliche thing to ask a female her age, but go ahead and give everyone your age, because you're relatively young yourself.
Yeah, so I'm 35.
Yeah.
My brother, again, he was the first one that got the race car. But the cool part about it was NHRA, IHRA, a couple of different sanctions. You needed to be 8 years old to race, and him being 22 months older than me, so he got to get the race car first. Kind of a funny story. The first day we took the race car to the racetrack, my brother was tested and getting ready for his first race or whatever, and I think I cried in the truck for like 2 hours because I couldn't drive it too. So we started together at a young age, and it wasn't long after that. Mom and Dad let me in the car, and I got to start making passes, and I may or may not have raced a little young at some point.
We probably had fake IDs before anybody else had fake IDs in this area. We were definitely racing before we were supposed to. And it is a funny joke throughout the racing community that we've raced with over the years. They say we don't age because our ID cards that Mama had made for us wasn't our real ages, but we raced. We were good at it, and we did start before we were supposed to. But we had our own fake IDs when we were like 7 or 8 years old.
We always joke at the racetrack that anytime we do anything, we tell Mom to go get our real birth certificate.
Go get our real birth certificate.
And she'll just look at us and laugh.
Yeah.
At this point, I don't know that anybody knows where those are at, the correct ones. So yeah, we started early, and so we just progressed from there. And like I said, it's year number 32. So starting at the age of 6 and 8. And we've been hard at it ever since.
Yeah, you guys definitely have. You certainly got some accolades, and we'll talk about those in just a moment. But really, before we go any further, so obviously, any form of racing is particularly male dominated, and I'd be remiss if we didn't ask you this question, Tisha. But being a female driver, I've talked to other female drivers in different forms of NASCAR and different forms of racing. And, they all kind of have a similar story that, you really have to prove yourself more than a man. And I'm not taking anything away from you, Tony. So, don't feel like I am. But, Tisha, is it the same in drag, or is it even harder in drag racing to prove yourself?
So we had great female leaders, back in the history of drag racing, Shirley Modowney and quite a few others, and even Eric Anders now, that's 6-time world champion. We've had great females to really pave the path and lead the way. And so at the end of the day, when you put your helmet on, and this is kind of the way I look at it, when I put my helmet on, I'm just any other person in a race car. You can't see my hair hanging down or anything like that. The only way you can tell any difference was probably my eyeliner or my makeup on my face through the helmet. And fortunately, over the years, when I was young, it was at 6 when I was racing in places that I wasn't supposed to be racing at. There was a problem because I was a little girl at that point, and I was doing well. And so probably I think my biggest motivation, in all honesty, really isn't on the driving side. Mine is the mechanical side of it, and really just being the most knowledgeable I can be with the race car, and any type of race car, whether it's the race car I'm driving or the race car he's driving, to understand how they work and to know what I need to know about them, to be able to maintain them and take care of them, and to give myself and to him and even my son, the best equipment that we can on the racetrack. So yeah, putting on the helmet's cool, and you're really the same across the board. But it really comes back to the knowledge of what you're driving and how well you know it, because you need that. Just like in NASCAR, you do need that feedback of what the car's doing to be able to communicate and fix issues or to make adjustments and things like that. So it's all about how you. It's all about the road you travel. Mine's a little different than the rest, probably, just because of the mechanical side of it. But it's been really cool to be able to join, other females in the racing industry, not just drag racing, to be a leader in the sport and to have my name on some of those lists and things like that of female lists that they have. So it's been neat, but there's really no difference once you put the helmet on.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the accolades you guys have. It's no secret, no shock, to anybody talking right now on this podcast or anyone who may be listening. You guys are very predominant drag racers, but you're in an area that's, as we said, dominated kind of by NASCAR. So you kind of get lost in the mix. But Tony, I've seen tons of publications about you. I've seen tons of publications about Tisha as well, whether it's from drag racing magazines or different sports related venues of where things can be publicized for various forms of sports. And you guys, you're in a lot of those. So let's talk about, past championships and things like that. And Tony, we'll start with you, and then Tisha, you can just jump in behind Tony.
Yeah, well, one of the biggest accomplishments that I feel like we've done together is we built a junior drag racing program at Bristol Dragway in NHRA Division II. We, I really want I want kids to be able to do this like we did. So I feel like we were a very big part of growing that junior dragster program in Bristol in the late '90s, early 2000s. So if I ever got, I guess if someone said, what's your biggest accomplishment? It would be that they have 30, 40, 50 junior dragsters weekly at Bristol Dragway. And I feel like that's because the time and effort we put into that. And we didn't even know we was doing it at the time. We were just kids too. So that's probably my biggest accomplishment. And I've done a lot of stuff with racing. Pro mod racing is what I do. Whether it be pro nitrous cars, whatever it is, we pro mod race, and that's what I love to do. We've won lots of races locally. PDRA is a huge series for pro mod racing. We've run really well there, several final round appearances. And then here we are going to NHRA this year, driving for Tim Wallace and Wallace Racing in his 55 Chevrolet. We're going to get to run all 10 races with Tim. So we're looking forward to that and bringing back the old school Charlie Carpenter looking type cars that you would see at Shuffletown back in the day during the Quick 8 races. So that's going to be fun. Also, we'll have our house car, my 63 Tommy Mooney Corvette that we run in outlaw trim. We'll run it in PDRA. Last year we run NHRA 2 races with Eric Gustafson and Jason Lee. We drove for them. Number 1 qualifier in Bristol, runner up in Epping, New Hampshire, and then semifinal in Bristol's event. So I never even sit in that car. That car last year, I never seen it, never sit in it. We go out there very first run, put it on the pole. It's just what we do. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. We love racing, whatever it is, and we're so competitive at it. Lose is not an option. We will work hard for whatever we have to do, and it shows with my sister. Several championships. I'm gonna let her get into that, but she has had some major milestones in racing for herself, and I'm gonna let her handle that part of it.
Yeah, so we've had, as you mentioned, the Bristol Dragway thing and growing up racing at Bristol really on a weekly basis. Again, probably the coolest part is being able to help build that program, and we still do today. My son races there on their weekly bracket series, and we still support that. So that's huge to still be a part of that and to be able to continue to let it grow. My brother had a couple of championships there too. So when we went back to Bristol in a professional category this year with with the Coast Packing team with Jason Lee. Seen him go on the pole, qualify number 1 and then runner up and semi, I guess, at Bristol. Being able to do that in front of our family and friends from all of those years, so that was huge. So history goes a way back on my side. One of the coolest opportunities I think that I've had over the years, I got to drive a nostalgia funny car for Virgil Hartman. So that was really neat. It was a nitro burning nostalgia funny car. I got to run it in Atlanta, make a couple of passes at a couple of other places. So that was a cool experience. I worked on those cars. I built them from the ground up. So then to him to give me the opportunity to go drive it was great. Through the years, though, we've done a lot of different stuff. Recently, I guess it's 2022, I finally decided to get back in a top dragster, and my parents supplied me with a great race car, and I was able to go out and win the 2022 top dragster world championship. So that was awesome. That was a 10 race schedule, and that one was nerve wracking through a couple of different events, just because of weather changes and stuff like that, and having to make sure that the car would qualify. And the bottom, so there, not to get into a bunch of detail, there's actually 2 different sections or 2 different parts of a top dragster class, and that bottom half, where the class that I ran of it, are some of the best racers in the country. And you could Google any of those folks and see their names, anywhere in the national news on the drag racing side. So that was a huge accomplishment for myself. So that was a couple of different national event wins with the PDRA series. Also, back in 2008, was able to win a super comp race on the national level for NHRA. So that again, some of the toughest racing in the country. So that was really, really cool. I was the 48th woman to win a national event for NHRA. So that's one of those cool lists I get to go on. And then this past year, I went back and I did the full PDRA series to try to defend my title, and won a couple of races and got all the way down to the last race of the year, and I ended up finishing 3rd. But going into the last race, I still mathematically had a chance. So to be able to go back and really just kind of defend it and to still be in the hunt and be in the chase at the end there was huge. So that's awesome. And then all of that really has kind of related into 2024 and my 2024 plans, being able to go drive for Alan O'Brien in a twin turbo AMC powered dragster, just step up into a different class. And it's fortunate that I have that opportunity this year, really because of just some of the things that I've been able to do in the past.
Sorry, my mic got cut off on me there. Yeah, and you guys have done some fantastic things. So I know we've got a new season getting started. So before we get into that, so just tell me about your first event coming up and where you're going to be.
So we have about 3 weeks left until the truck rolls out to sunny Florida. We're headed to Bradenton Motorsports Park for the World Series of Pro Mod. Some 100,000 to win. They picked 60 of the best pro mod racers in the world, and we were invited to do that with our family car, with the Corvette. So we're going to head to Bradenton, run the World Series of Pro Mod with my car. While we're there, we're also going to test the 55 Chevrolet of Tim Wallace's. Once that race is complete on Sunday, we pack our semi up and we head to Gainesville, Florida, to start race number 1 of the NHRA series at Gator Nationals. So that's how we start the year, and we'll leave there and head to Phoenix right after. So busy. We've got about 3 more weeks, and then it's on from there.
Definitely. You mentioned your family car a few times now, the Corvette, and I think it's got a pretty cool nickname if I remember correctly. And what is the nickname of that car?
Shaky Puddin'.
Shaky Puddin'. That's what I thought I had read. So, and did you also race a Camaro at one time, or am I mistaken with that?
Yep. So we had a '69 Camaro called the Midnight Special.
That's it.
The Midnight Special was that we named that car off Burt Sugarman's Midnight Special TV show. And then the Shaky Puddin' Corvette, that name came from a local Henry Turner, he owned Ace High,
Ace High Performance.
yeah, Ace High Performance here in Concord. So he had a wagon that was called Shaky Puddin'. They run at Shuffletown, and kind of done that tribute to Henry, and we like doing that. We had an uncle that had the K-Town Hustler modified production Camaro. So at some point we'll probably bring that into the mix. But we like kind of paying our dues to the past. I think that's pretty cool. It kind of takes and brings a group of people in that they say, oh yeah, look at that. I remember that name. That was Henry Turner's name, or that I watched that TV show. So we just like doing that kind of stuff.
One of the cool things about the Turner family is, and this is really where the drag racing thing came with my mom. Henry's wife, Frances, was a huge drag racer in the area, street racer. She had an awesome old Nova. And that's where my mom really got her drive. And it was one of their close friends. And so growing up, we always had Frances around. And I remember going to Mooresville at a young age, and Frances was still racing. So that's been cool to be able to pull that back together.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, you talked about your first 3 races coming up, and, I'm excited to be working with you guys this year. We're going to obviously promote a lot of what you're doing to really get the word out. Going to be doing some weather forecast for you. And so, while we're on the weather subject, I've done some things in the past with some NASCAR drivers, and their engineers are really in tune to what's going on with weather. And certainly we understand why that would be. But you guys have to be real careful with the weather too, with the drag racing. So can you give some insight on how the weather can affect your events itself, aside from just the general raining in the mountain, things like that, other scenarios that weather could play on your event?
Yeah, tuning these race cars is all off of weather data. Whether it be barometric pressure, your density altitudes, your water grains. There's a lot to that when you run these motors because they're all either it's nitrous blower, ProCharge. They're all power adders, and a nitrous car, the more water grains in the air, the more nitrous you can put to it. So we tune these cars off of that. It takes air, fuel, and fire is what it takes. So we really monitor all that every pass. Also, what people also don't realize is weather really depends on our scheduling. On when we get to leave this racetrack to get to another racetrack, or when it costs us days, it costs us money. If it rains, there's a lot to it in the logistical side of it too. But weather is a huge part of our racing, whether it be with the motors or logistics.
Yeah, so our trailers are equipped with weather stations. So we have what we call it's a company out of Maryland, Computech Systems. We have it's got a wind meter in it. We have a mount that goes on top of the trailer. We keep it about 6 to 8 foot above the top of the trailer so that we can get a reading.
It gets accurate reading.
Yeah, and then that particular system is equipped with text messages, like a text messaging system. So my brother and I, we have our phones, and we can take a look at weather basically at any different interval that we want.
All the way up to right before we crank the cars up, we are getting text messages letting us know what the weather is. It's that important. That's how these cars run.
For him, really for both cars, it's really we do have like a ratio that we use. So ever so many 100 feet that the DA would drop, or so many water grains, either changes the jet size that we use in our fuel systems, or in my particular case, once we get to eliminations, we don't really make any changes except for a dial in. So that's adjusted. That basically estimated time is adjusted based off of the weather readings that we get. So it's a constant.
I think one of the biggest things with the weather and racing, Steve, is, and this is where we're going to hear it. If we know that it's going to rain 3 days at the racetrack, we need to take 3 bottles of Crown Royal.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. All right. So as long as we have that covered, you let us know how many days it's going to rain. We know how many bottles of Crown we need.
Yeah, we can accomplish that easily. So you mentioned 6 to 8 feet above above the trailer where you have this thing mounted, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is really the recommendation for mounting any weather station, whether it's the one that you put in your backyard or like you guys have at the track or whatever. And the reason for that is that 6 feet will buy you any kind of heat buildup that might be coming from the top of the trailer. So you get a much more accurate temperature reading. Also, it keeps you from having any kind of wind being blocked. So anything that runs through your anemometer, it's got a clear shot and all that. So I'm glad you guys mentioned that. It sounds like you've got a great setup going on there. Certainly, sounds like weather plays, in my opinion, a bigger role in what you do than any other form of racing based on my knowledge with working with other drivers and things like that. Um, for those that don't know though, how long, so you mentioned 3 days, for example, what's the longest period of time you've been at a racetrack because of rain before you were able to either just cancel the event or move on to the next one?
We were at the World Finals in Virginia. We normally get to them. We normally get to the races on Tuesday. We'll leave Sunday afternoon or Monday and drive to the tracks, and we get there on Tuesday. We were there till the following Wednesday. It snowed. It snowed and rained during the weekend, and they couldn't cancel the event because that was the final race of the year, and all the championships were to be decided. So it was Wednesday of the following week we finally got to come home. And that's probably been 2007, 16, 17, something like that. But yeah, about a week. And I tell you, after about 4 days of it, you're kind of ready to go home
Yeah.
or move on to another location. So
Yeah, I can certainly imagine that, especially, that being the last race of the season. I mean, your fate in some ways may have already been decided. So you're just like, I'm done with this. I'm ready to go home and
yeah,
start the off season. But let's get into the off season real quick, while we're talking about that. So the off season, I think, can be very confusing to a lot of folks from outside looking in because there's never really truly an off season in terms of any from the last race to the first race. You may get like a few days off if you're lucky, but overall, you're working year round, aren't you?
Yeah, so normally our World Finals race for the last PDRA race is usually somewhere in the middle of October. The last NHRA race is usually Halloween weekend or the first weekend of November. The Pro Mod races, they have quite a few races down in Florida through the winter. So November, December, and then over into January, there's races that we could go run any of the Pro Mod cars down in Florida. The dragster and some of the other local bracket racing stuff that we do, we basically could race year round. We may have to travel to Florida or travel up towards the coast, but we could technically race year round. We have a kind of like a family rule that January is kind of like is off limits. We try most of the time to take January off and do as much maintenance as we can. This year was a little different just because we've had a lot of the other stuff going on. But in that little short period of time, you throw in the banquets, all the award ceremonies, the PRI show up in Indy. So racing is never really off. Just the car may be parked for a couple of weeks or something like that. So it just really depends on what we have going on, sponsor commitments, and what we have left from a 10-month season, what we have left to actually go race. So, but again, for us, it's staying sharp and keeping the skills fresh. So like my brother mentioned earlier, we will race anything with wheels, whether it's shopping carts or wheelchairs. There's a likely chance that we're going to do a little beating and banging, and something's going to get raced. So we've done that, from the time we started till now, and a lot of our time, my brother probably mentioned this, but if we didn't have drag races going on, he built a go-kart track in his front yard.
Rowan County was not happy.
So if we're not racing, drag racing, then we're racing something. And we've had 400 or 500 people at our house for a go-kart race on any given Saturday. So obviously we can't do that anymore just because of time constraints.
Definitely like to give a shout out to JD's and Ed Muir there in the local office. Good friends of mine now. One thing that she didn't mention too is, you have the off season. You have to stop at some point because people don't realize what we have rolling up down the road. We have 18 wheeler. We have 2 or 3 RVs. We have small supply trailers. So at some point you have to stop. You have to tires, you have to do service, you have to do all this on these trucks and trailers, because you work on that stuff almost as much as you work on a race car when you travel as much as we travel. A lot of times, your weekends are consumed working on a race car. Your weeknights are consumed. You work during the day, you go home, you work at night. But we don't mind it. That's what we do. So
Yeah.
it's not everybody's like, man, why do y'all do that? Can you just take some time off? Let's go to the casino. Let's go to the beach. No, let's work on race cars and let's get our stuff ready. We try to be normal. We try to be normal and do normal stuff when we can, but it's never worked out for us. We just want to work on race cars.
So let me follow up on that. So let's say when you do try to be normal and you take that moment to be normal, what's your most favorite normal thing to do?
Wrong question to ask because I really don't think we can answer that honestly.
Uh, um, I would say that if I had to pick something to go do that didn't include racing, um, I do enjoy the casinos, which is a problem, but I do enjoy the casinos and traveling. So we've been all over the place to different places with Caesar's Rewards.
Yeah, that's him. That's not me.
Caesar's Rewards.
Let's get that clear. I like to, so I have to travel for work quite a bit. So I do like to go and see new places or do things. So if I do get a random weekend that I can go somewhere, I usually fly to a beach somewhere or just something not here. I usually and I like to fly when I go. I don't normally drive because I get all the driving all the windshield time I need throughout the year. So I like to go check out something new usually.
Definitely. Well, the casinos could be a problem if you had more time to go to them, but you don't. So that eliminates that problem.
No, we don't have enough time to go
Yeah.
anyway, so it doesn't matter. I would just soon be at a racetrack.
There you go. There you go. Well, before you go any further, I do need to pay one bill real quick. So the advertising partner that helps sponsor these podcasts is William Ryan Enterprises. And if anyone's heard any background noise of beating and banging or anything like that, they're actually doing a master bathroom remodel in my home right now. And we've been enjoying that. We've been sharing videos and photos of that. They're located at 1600 North Main Street in China Grove. So if you've got any kind of remodeling or home renovating, or even you're looking to build a custom home, you can stop by and see them and they can help you out. And now let's go ahead and talk about businesses you guys are involved in because you're involved in a few of them. Premier Concrete Solutions is one. So tell us about that.
I started residential concrete services back in 2005, the year I graduated from South Rowan High School. I had worked previously at Wayne Brothers Incorporated, done an internship, apprenticeship there through my high school years. And I started that and I've run that solely on my own up till 2023, last year, when I merged with my sister and my wife. They've come on as partners to help the day-to-day part of the business because it's just too much for me to handle on my own. But so anyway, Premier Concrete Solutions is a residential, commercial, industrial concrete supply company. I guess you could say we driveways, sidewalks, a lot of racing buildings. These big race shops is something we do a lot of. And then you'll see us uptown Kannapolis, Concord, places working for municipalities and things like that. But we've traveled doing work for Amazon over the last couple of years. We're not just here in Kannapolis. We do travel up and down the East Coast. So it's definitely more than a residential company. I know I have a lot of people call me and say, "Hey, can you come do this?" And I would love to. That's how I started the business. But now we have so much overhead and we've grown so much that it's hard for me to go do that and be cost effective. But we do try. We do try to do what we can for all our neighbors here in the Rowan County, Cabarrus areas, if we can get to it. But our bread and butter is more the commercial, industrial type work.
Yeah, and Amazon's been popping a lot of facilities up lately. So hopefully they've been keeping you busy on that aspect.
Yeah. So the bad thing is there might be 5 right here in our backyard, but I have to drive to Indianapolis to do the ones we have contracts for. So I'm probably passing someone along the way that's coming here while I'm going there to do them. So I don't understand it. That's the way big business works, I guess, on that stuff.
Well, they just specialize in shipping. They don't specialize in where you're going to go build from.
That's exactly right. Yeah, yeah. So,
So
it has,
go ahead.
it has been a big help having my sister and my wife come on with us. We rebranded from Residential Concrete Services to Premier Concrete Solutions, just because we wanted to get the residential name out of it. We, like I said, I wish that I could do the residential stuff because I enjoyed helping people. I enjoyed seeing them smile at the end of the day when they come out and they had a new patio or a new driveway. That made me feel good about what I did. But as we grow, we you tend to kind of lose that connection, and it is a loss for myself also because I do miss that.
Yes, I understand that. I mean, obviously this is called Rowan County Weather, and first and foremost, I do weather. But over the 10+ years I've been doing this now, I've adapted it because you have to. I mean, just like with what you've done, so now I've got, I talk about, different forms of racing. I talk about Major League Soccer with my ties in with Charlotte FC, and different news things that might be going on, road closures, whatever. Because if you do not adapt your business, it will not be around. And that's one thing we've all learned, I think.
Yeah, no, it's whether it's your business, our racing, our
Yep.
concrete business, or
Yep.
anyone else's. You want people to succeed, and
Yep.
you want to see people grow.
Yep.
People need goals in their life, whether it be a kid playing baseball in middle school or whatever. You need goals, and you have to set that for yourself, or you will stray. You will, and I think it's good to see growth in businesses, communities, and in general, growth is good. And obviously, I hate that we don't do as much residential as we used to. But I hope everybody says, man, these kids from Kannapolis, they've done good for themselves,
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
I don't want people thinking bad that we can't do their job. I want them to be happy for us because we've been able to make it. And maybe the time comes where we can start another company, but you got to find people that want to work first.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about other companies you guys are involved in. I know you've got a lot of sponsors out there that help you. So if you want to give some shout outs to them, let's definitely do that.
Yeah, so on top of the concrete business, my dad also owns a hauling business, so we're able to kind of intermix that with our business when we need to. He hauls stone and asphalt and does some other stuff like that. So we've got one dump truck there that Dad runs on a daily basis. So we're fortunate for that. Not only we're fortunate for the business itself, but it also allows us to have Dad when we need Dad. For the race cars and for racing and stuff like that, and his flexibility. So it's always good to be able to do that. And then we've got our hands in a lot of other different stuff, but those are really two are the main ones. The racing thing obviously is just time consuming in itself, and that takes up most of between the three, it takes up most of our time. We've got some great partners though with Premier Concrete Solutions. Some Finney Builders, we do quite a bit of work for them from a concrete basis, and we've been great friends with Tony Finney and his wife Crystal throughout the years, and they've been involved with our racing program on all of our cars. And then they've even it kind of expanded on their racing too. Their grandson's racing as well, so my son and their grandson get to go race together. So that connection through the business has turned into a great family relationship, family friend relationship. We've got, because of the construction industry, we've made a lot of different connections. We've been able to do a lot of business, like my brother said, within the racing industry. A lot of different shops and buildings around the Mooresville drag strip area that we've been able to work with. So having those connections and this being the center of racing, through drag racing, we pulled in a lot of business that way as well. We've got a lot of friends from the racetrack that are kind of, I'm not going to say migrating here, but they're migrating here from different areas of the world. We've got some friends that built a shop here from Canada. We've got some that came through from Phoenix. So we've been able to help with that as well.
So, like you asked, some of our sponsors and people that's helped us. Again, she said Finney Builders. We also have Gopher Utilities, the Mullis family here in Kannapolis. They've helped us a lot. There is several businesses. David Lambert, Wayne's Automotive. They got me. They basically got me started racing back years ago in the door car stuff. Uh, but the thing that we need, and I taught you, Steve, this week, early in the week, well, it'd be last week now. We needed to figure out a way to where we can merge your business, my business, our racing, and get it out in the community that we're here. We're available. We're national TV.
Yep.
We have a semi going up and down the road all the time. These cars are available for displays at all these different businesses, and we could use some help. I mean, we're not going to sit here and tell you this is easy on us because this podcast sounds, oh man, this is good, this is great for them. It's hard for us. It's very hard for us, and we could use some sponsorships and partnerships through whether it be working relationships.
Yep.
We could use that. Uh, it is a very, people don't understand the amount of money it takes to do it. And we definitely have something to offer for companies in our area.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're certainly going to do a lot together. I know we haven't had a chance to really talk about it yet, but I've got plans for, coming out to your shop at some point and really maybe doing some video and photos and different things like that, and working with different folks to maybe get your car set up somewhere. Like you said, for display purposes, it's always pretty cool. I remember as a kid going and seeing John Force's car, that was something in this area that you really just that wasn't normal to see, and so that was a special thing for me. And I still remember to this day seeing that car and thinking, man, that is the most awesome car I've ever seen in my life in person. And so, certainly would love to be able to see things like that develop. I know you would too. I mean, you guys talk about how you work at, with Bristol, and you've got these younger kids that are coming up, but you never know when the opportunity would come where you got this car. I'll just throw out just events I've worked with in the past. Let's just say China Grove Farmers Day, right? Say you have one of your cars sitting there and a kid comes to Farmers Day, he's never seen a drag race car before in his life in person, and he sees it and goes, man, or she, man, I want to do that right there. I want to get behind the wheel of that right there. And that can mean just as much as anything else, but it certainly helps to open the door for all kinds of things. And so, would love to certainly be able to help you guys do that, and do a lot of things really going forward, especially here in 2024, to really get the word out.
Yeah, that sounds good. And this works in a couple different ways. The kids at high school,
Yeah.
racing really puts a work ethic into you that no one can believe. And that goes back to high school kids that need a reason. When they graduate, they need a reason to. Not everybody's meant to go to college. That's not everybody's path. Not everybody's meant to do that. We have the ability to sit up at the schools, at William Ryan, and promote our concrete business along with him.
Yeah.
We have the abilities to connect it all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's going to be a great opportunity to really, get some connections going. Certainly will lean on some of my advertising partners that I have. I have some folks that they don't they don't have a business per se in terms of an actual building, but they have like real estate businesses and things like that. So hopefully we can all partner together and make something happen, and certainly look forward to trying to do that with you as we go into 2024. So let me just ask you guys a couple more things real quick before we wrap up. So basically, these are just kind of generalized questions, but what would you say? We've talked about Bristol being probably the thing you've been the most proud of, but let's talk about tracks in general that you've been to. What would you say is the track that you made it to and you went, man, this is the track I've always wanted to come to, and I'm glad that we're here. What would be that track for you guys?
Go ahead.
Virginia holds a pretty close spot in my heart. That's where I won my first NHRA national event. It's also where I won my first world championship. So always going to Virginia at any time for any race is always special. But Bristol's home. That's absolutely probably my most favorite place in the world.
I think not because it's hometown, but I think when I was sitting on the starting line at the 4 Wide Nationals in a pro mod car at ZMAX Dragway, that was probably a pretty special moment for me. But what I will tell you, looking forward in 2024, is when I'm sitting on that starting line in Indianapolis at the U.S. Nationals. That right there is going to put it all in perspective and make all of it. It's all come together at that point when I'm sitting in the beans at U.S. Nationals in Q4 of qualifying or first round of eliminations, and we're about to drop the hammer. I think that right there, that solidifies my life goals right there.
Yeah, I think anytime you can get behind the wheel of anything in Indy, any version of Indy that's out there, you've done it. Even if you're just driving the golf cart around,
That's
you've
right.
made it to the big time there. So yeah, I certainly agree with that. What would you say? So let's flip it the other way around now and say, what would you say has been your most adverse moment of your career?
Most adverse moments or time frame. I'm gonna put it in a time frame.
Okay.
I had a time frame in probably 2010 to 2012 where I wasn't sure if I wanted to race, and I didn't. We kind of took a break, and that those couple of years has defined the rest of my up to now. Those couple of years I took off, figured out what I wanted to do, whether it be business, racing, just life aspects. I had to take a break. I messed up there because I should have not done that. I missed 2 or 3 years where I just lost time in a car, and I probably messed up the most by doing that.
Tisha, what about you?
Yeah, I got a good one. Probably 2008. I think it's 2008. I was running the Nostalgia Funny car at Atlanta, and it rolled a sprag in the transmission and over revved, and at about 1,000 foot, it blew up into flames. Blew the body off, pulled the parachutes, burnt the borrowed fire suit I had on up, and I had to hand it back charred. So in a race car, that was probably my most adverse moment was being on fire at about 200 miles an hour at Atlanta in a nostalgia car. So, and then it's like my brother, I've taken some breaks, and I've raced something every year, but I've taken some breaks as well, and fortunate though that it's always led right back to here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you just talked about what you dealt with there in Atlanta, and I've been thinking about this in the back of my mind the whole time we've been talking is what would it be like to be behind the wheel of one? I've never done that. So in my mind, I'm thinking, well, I guess that might equate to like being strapped into a rocket. But from your own personal opinions, what's it like?
It's like going down the first hill of a roller coaster. Just going down the hill of a roller. That's the best way I can explain it. For the first couple of times, and then when your butt and your brain kind of gets on the same page after you've done it enough, then it's like driving a car down the road. You get used to it. Now that's with the stuff that I drive that I've driven in the past, and obviously these things are the faster you go, they're different animals, and then racetrack conditions and things like that always can throw you a curveball. But just the first initial is really like kind of like a hill of a roller coaster, with a couple of jerks and kinks and twists and things like that thrown in the middle of it most of the time.
Yeah, that's probably that's her point of view. My point of view would be at about the 210 mile an hour mark, whether it be eighth mile or quarter mile, you get tunnel vision because you're also at like three and a half G's or 3 G's, and you're going 200 mile an hour at that point, and you're still going to end up going 255 or 260 mile an hour. That's at a point, it is so loud, but it's so quiet. And I cannot explain that to nobody. You're in a place of your own, and there ain't no turning back. And that's what I live for. I live for that loud quietness. And you get that. And it starts at about 200, 205. And it's just, you're in a place that no one can ever imagine. And I like that.
I hear you there. Well, Tony and Tisha, I certainly appreciate your time today. Look forward to covering you guys through 2024 and hopefully beyond. But looking forward to covering all these events. We'll even take some of your runs and I'll get them, embedded onto our website and social media pages and things like that, so folks can. Hopefully, they're watching it live. But if for some reason they don't get to see it live, because how some folks don't have cable or some folks stream, and you just don't get all the channels depending on where you go. But hopefully we can get it out there so folks can at least see it, see what you guys do, and continue to grow this, as well. And looking forward to it though. But thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Yeah, you can catch most of our stuff on Flow Sports, and that'll start down to the World Series of Pro Mod in Bradenton. And then obviously the NHRA schedule will be on, I guess, whatever they're doing.
Yeah, I don't know if Fox Sports, but anyway, you can catch NHRA on your local, on your TV stations there on Sunday afternoons or whatever. So,
yeah. Awesome. Well, we'll make sure we promote those as well, so we can get the times and broadcast times and all that up. I have Flow Sports. I've got Flow Racing. It's one of the things that I make sure to pay for every year, because I just love to sit down and watch anybody race anything. So,
and while to bring this to an end, we want to thank you for everything you do.
Yeah, thank you.
Because we every morning our guys come to work and we have to know what the weather is going to be like before we put concrete on the ground. So we use your forecast to get us through the days and weeks, and to let our guys know where we're going to be at. So we want to thank you and appreciate everything you do for us on our business end, because we didn't talk about the weather in our business part. It's as crucial as it is as a motor for a race car. So we really appreciate what we do.
Yeah, well, thank you. I certainly appreciate that. And yeah, you're absolutely right. I didn't even think about asking you about that when we talked about your concrete, because that, weather certainly can have an impact on when you can pour it and how long you have to wait to get on it and everything else. So yeah, you're absolutely right. But I certainly appreciate your kind words.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.